in Turkey after...
The US-based Turkish political dissident Fethullah Gulen has died. Gulen built a religious movement in his home country and later lived in self-imposed exile in the United States, where his influence continued to provoke the wrath of Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. On Sunday, a website that publishes his sermons said on social media that Gulen had died at the age of 83. Gulen was a one-time ally of Erdogan, but they fell out spectacularly. Erdogan held him responsible for the 2016 attempted coup, in which rogue soldiers commandeered airplanes, tanks, and helicopters. Some 250 people were killed in the bid to seize power. In an interview with Reuters at his compound in Pennsylvania in 2017, Gulen denied involvement in the coup.
I have never supported a coup or an ouster. I think any change should happen as the result of an election, if that is required. It is important that democracy is not harmed.
Gulen had lived in self-imposed exile in the United States since 1999. His movement was designated a terrorist group by Turkey. On Monday, Turkey's foreign minister said, quote, "The leader of this dark organization has died," and said what he described as Gulen's spell on his followers must be lifted. Followers of Gulen's movement, known as Hizmet, which means service in Turkish, say it seeks to spread a moderate brand of Islam that promotes Western-style education, free markets, and interfaith communication. Since the failed coup, his movement has been systematically dismantled in Turkey, and its international influence has declined. Soon after the 2016 coup, Erdogan described Gulen's network as traitors and, quote, "like a cancer," vowing to root them out wherever they are. Ankara long sought to have him extradited from the United States.
Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris and her Republican rival Donald Trump both look to be intensifying their outreach to undecided voters on Monday, with packed schedules in battleground states. Vice President Harris on Monday held events in 3 of the 7 states expected to decide the winner of the November 5th election. At an event in Malvern, Pennsylvania, Harris sought to define herself apart from the Biden administration.
And needless to say, mine will not be a continuation of the Biden administration. I bring to it my own ideas, my own experiences. But it is also about moving past what, frankly, I think has been the last decade of the American discourse being influenced by Donald Trump.
Harris was there with Republican lawmaker Liz Cheney, the daughter of the former Republican Vice President Dick Cheney. She and her father are 2 of the most prominent Republicans to have endorsed Harris, while also being staunch conservatives. On the campaign trail, Cheney has told undecided Republicans it's okay to support the Democrat without fear of backlash. On Monday, she portrayed Donald Trump as a threat to the U.S. Constitution.
I know that the most conservative of all conservative principles is being faithful to the Constitution. And you have to choose in this race between someone who has been faithful to the Constitution, who will be faithful, and Donald Trump, who it's not just us predicting how he will act. We watched what he did after the last election. We watched what he did on January 6th.
Many Democrats still criticize the elder Cheney for strongly supporting the U.S. invasion of Iraq. In a post on his Truth Social platform on Monday, Trump called Liz Cheney dumb as a rock and a war hawk. He accused her of wanting to go to war with, quote, every Muslim country known to mankind, just like her father. Besides posting on social media, Trump on Monday worked to gin up support in the ultra-competitive state of North Carolina. At one stop in the state's hurricane-battered mountains, he urged supporters to go to the polls despite the hardships they were facing. Then, after a rally in Greenville, Trump ended his day at a Christian event in the city of Concord alongside Franklin Graham, son of the famed evangelist Billy Graham. In remarks there, Trump steered clear of some of the off-color rhetoric he has been using in recent speeches and took a more reflective tone.
As I look back at my life's journey and events, I now recognize that it's been the hand of God leading me to where I am today.
Opinion polls showed that this year's race is a close one. The candidates' frenzied campaign schedules in the final weeks show the importance of small pockets of voters that could put either candidate over the top.
A slim majority of just over 50% voted yes in a crunch referendum on European Union accession, after President Maya Sandu said Sunday's twin votes were marred by unprecedented, alleged Russian-backed outside interference. The EU has also leapt to the leader's defence, claiming Russia and its proxies had meddled in the election. President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen hailed the outcome, quote, in the face of Russia's hybrid tactics, in a post on X. Sandu told media an outside attempt to buy votes amounted to an attack on the ex-Soviet republic's sovereignty.
Ținta lor de a cumpăra 300.000 de voturi.
Their target of buying 300,000 votes documented by state institutions and paying 150,000 people to vote shows we must look closely at where mistakes were made and learn from this miserable attack on our sovereignty.
Atac mizerabil asupra suveranității noastre. Din păcate, sistemul de justiție.
Unfortunately, the justice system did not manage to do enough to prevent theft and vote corruption.
Și coruperea voturilor.
And here we will have to draw the line to correct what we did wrong and learn our lesson.
Și să învățăm lecția.
She said Moldova would respond with firm decisions. In the run-up to the vote, authorities made repeated statements alleging Moscow-backed attempts to meddle in the vote by fugitive tycoon Ilan Shor, who lives in Russia. Shor denies wrongdoing. The Kremlin denounces the vote, alleging there was a hard-to-explain increase in yes votes and challenged Sandu to present evidence of meddling by Russia. The vote was seen as a test of the nation's aspirations to join the EU by 2030 and escape Moscow's orbit for good. In the run-up to Sunday's referendum, polls had shown clear majority support for joining the EU. A yes result means a clause will be added to the constitution defining EU accession as a goal. But the knife-edge finish is a dent in the pro-EU path pursued over 4 years. Sandu won 42% of the vote at a presidential election held simultaneously, while her main rival won 26%, a stronger result than polls had predicted that now forces an early November runoff. As a champion of EU integration, the tight referendum result could put Sandu in a weaker position going into the second round. The future of the Southeast European nation has been in the spotlight since Russia's invasion of neighbouring Ukraine. Ties with Moscow have deteriorated as Sandu condemned the invasion and diversified energy supplies away from Russia.
Palestinians seeking to harvest olives in the occupied West Bank were met by Israeli soldiers on Sunday. They prevented the farmers from picking fruit in some parts of the valley in the northern West Bank. High above, Israeli settlers looked down on the dispute. Palestinians and rights groups say since the beginning of the harvest this month, armed Israeli settlers have assaulted Palestinian farmers, cut down trees, and set fire to olive groves. Amid more than a year of carnage in Gaza, the West Bank has been at a lower simmer. Palestinians claim the territory here is part of a homeland. Israeli settlers, emboldened by some far-right Israeli government ministers, seek to annex the territories they call Judea and Samaria. The Israeli military did not immediately respond to comment when asked by Reuters about accusations that soldiers bar olive farmers from accessing their lands. The military says it tries to ensure Palestinians can harvest while avoiding clashes with settlers, and says the war in Gaza has raised tension in the West Bank, causing a security situation that is harder to manage. The olive harvest, which runs roughly between September and November, has been caught up in that violence. It's an ancient form of agriculture that in some ways hasn't changed, at least not much. Tarps are draped beneath the trees, and the branches are raked or plucked for their fruits. The olives are gathered and fed into a crusher, which produces the oil. But earlier this month in the village of Burin, soldiers tried to stop Palestinians from gathering the olives under these tarps. A settler told them they couldn't have the fruit of these trees. Ibrahim Omaran is the head of the Burin Municipal Council. He told Reuters that in past years the harvest has been a joyous occasion. They brought tea and seasonal foods and picked olives. This year, he says, quote, "The season has become tarnished with blood." They now had to try and steal their own olives, he said, as if they were thieves, as if they were not the real owners of the land. Khetam Najjar is a resident of Burin. She said the land was her identity. Without the land, she had no identity. Musab Sufan is another Burin resident. Beyond his gate, he can see the groves of olives he said were burned by Israeli settlers. The Israeli rights group Yesh Din released this video it says is from September, showing masked settlers setting fire to olive trees and stealing their fruit. Sufan said there were always obstacles to the harvest. Sometimes the army says the groves are a closed military zone. He said he picked the trees in front of his house in secret. A group of Western states, including France, Britain, and Germany, issued a joint memo this month saying olive picking had become dangerous due to settler violence and calling on Israel to allow Palestinians to join the harvest.